On November 7th, this young woman thought her path was before her. She believed she was going to come to D.C. She believed she was going to work in public policy. She believed that Hillary was going to be elected, and she had worked hard to try and elect her. On November 9th, because it was about 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning, she recognized that her life would be totally different for at least the next 4 years. This is the woman that is not used to being a public speaker, that stood up at the Democratic National Convention and was one of the people that nominated Hillary Clinton. She is an activist. She is the next generation of political forces in this country. I want to welcome to the podium Nyala Amaru.
If not Hillary, then who? If not now, then when? It was election night at the Javits Center, and the energy had evaporated from boisterous anticipation to a quiet despair. I could hear soft sobs. I could taste the growing desperation of the room, and my own chest was heavy with disappointment. What was supposed to be an historic night in America's march towards a more perfect union was instead a devastating blow to women's equality and to America's progress. There were no broken shards of glass, only broken dreams. If not Hillary, then who? And if not now, then when? These were the questions I asked myself in the moment that I realized that Hillary had lost. It was deep into the night, and most of the crowd had gone home. But ever faithful, I stayed. But the stage reflected how I felt. Empty. I remember looking above and staring aimlessly at the highest glass ceiling in New York. Lost in my own thoughts, a song on the loudspeakers by the band called Journey pierced through my own muddled musings and reminded me of the true spirit and strength of America. Don't stop believing. Don't stop believing. While I'm not much of a singer, it was those lyrics in that moment that I needed. I was reminded that America had been here before. Here being a place of deep disappointment, a place of profound fear, a place of heartbreaking loss. But here has always been a place of hope. So where do we go from here, and how? American history and my own experiences have taught me that where is always forward, and the how has always been us. We as a nation have been here before. I remember practicing my speech backstage at the DNC, and when I looked up, I found myself standing directly behind civil rights icon Congressman John Lewis. I was awestruck. To literally follow his footsteps and formally nominate America's first woman presidential nominee was more than a surreal moment. It was a reflection of America's progress. Generations ago, a young John Lewis marched across Edmund Pettus Bridge to secure the right to vote for all Americans. Generations ago, Hillary Clinton redefined the role of a first lady by daring to propose meaningful health care reform. They planted seeds from the power of grassroots movements and governments, so someday someone like me could live more fully in an America they helped create. I shared the stage with a congressman who had his skull cracked for daring for the right to vote. And less than 100 years after the passage of the 19th Amendment, I voted for a woman president. We must protect and continue that progress. But how? How do we create social change? How do we move forward? John Lewis and Hillary Clinton are two great examples of how we can influence public policy and make an impact. Understand that public policy is a government decision that expresses certain values and beliefs. Whose values and whose beliefs depends on politics, advocacy, and you. Yes, you. You can create change. Your voice can be heard. You can make a difference. Progress through activism. The first way you can create an impact is through the external channel. This means outside the system, what I call the grassroots. Grassroots movements represent the power of the people. The roles within the grassroots space are rich with opportunities for you to make an impact. But first, you must ask yourself, what does political power mean to you? Political power holds different meanings to different people in different spaces. From organizing a neighborhood group around a quality of life issue, to volunteering with a nonprofit that focuses on a cause that's near and dear to your heart, to exercising your power at the ballot box. There are so many ways to define and exercise your own form of political power. Once you define your form of political power, you better understand how to use it so you can create and be that change. That's the power of the people. The second way to make an impact is through the internal channel of government. This means being part of the system. From working on behalf of a government agency, to staffing an elected, to running for office yourself, you are part of a system that is responsible for making the very decisions that impacts lives. What does political power look like to you in this space? Is it developing programs that address specific issues? Is it passing legislation that solves problems or achieves goals? Is it investing funding from the budget into communities that need it most? That's the power of government. Grassroots, government, and the three prongs of political power. But while grassroots and government are two separate channels, understand that they cannot function without each other. Marches, protests, and rallies serve their purpose in building public awareness, but are stunted in their impact unless they effect a change in public policy. There must be a connection between the grassroots organizers who state their demands and the elected officials who can deliver on those demands, be it through policy, programs, or funding. Likewise, elected officials who pass laws that only benefit the few create an environment in which community needs are ignored. This results in voter distrust and apathy, and misses the true purpose of governance. How then do the two work together? A painful lesson I have learned from my time as a grassroots organizer in Georgia, to a legislative staffer on Capitol Hill, and a government executive in New York, is that ethics has no home in politics. Morality and doing the right thing are casualties in the pursuit of power. In politics, there are three prongs of power that matter in the decision-making process: press, money, and votes. Press. As an elected official, if I support or don't support your issue, will it garner me good or bad press? Press is key because it shapes public perception and public opinion. Will I be rewarded if I support you, or will I be shamed for not supporting you? As a citizen, Build relationships with journalists or others who can publish a story about your cause to get you that press for political pressure. Money. As an elected official, if I support or don't support your issue, what is it going to cost me in campaign contributions? Money is key because if there's not significant financial benefit to my re-election campaign, then there's little risk in dismissing your cause. As a citizen, donate to the electeds who are doing a good job. They need your support, particularly when those hard votes are cast. Votes. As an elected official, if I support or don't support your issue, what is it going to cost me in votes? Will I gain or will I lose? The answer lies in who shows up at the polls. Those are the people that the elected official is working for, because those are the people who determine if a politician is able to maintain their position or not as an elected. As a citizen, you need to show up at the polls every time. If you don't show up, then there's no incentive for an elected official to consider your viewpoints on an issue or take into account your needs. While each tool is powerful in its own right, it is the everyday citizen who holds the greatest power, and that they are the ones who decide how and when to use these tactics to hold elected officials accountable. Understand this: government works for you, but will only respond to your needs if you show up and hold its representatives accountable. Moving forward, we can all be activists, and as activists we can create change, because activism is so much more than marching in protest or sending a letter to your representative. To begin with, you can challenge ignorance. From the White House to our own dinner tables. Speak up when you are in the presence of false information. Unchecked, fear can destroy the safety of entire communities, and it is up to us to speak up and protect our vulnerable neighbors against hate. You can share your skills and your expertise. Your talent and your experiences is needed. There are nonprofits, issue campaigns, and everyday concerned citizens who need what you have to offer. Are you a web developer? Do you have a background in marketing? Can you provide legal advice? No matter your skill set, there is a place for you to share your gifts and contribute to social change. Find that place and give the best of yourself. Let's talk about the isms and the obias. The more we have conversations centered on what makes us uncomfortable, the better we become at understanding experiences other than our own. Talk about why appointing white supremacists to presidential cabinets is an issue. Talk about why Black lives matters. Talk about why Black lives matter. Talk about why marriage equality matters and how love belongs to everyone, to the very people who disagree with you. There are many roles within the grassroots and government channels for everyday citizens to make an impact and work towards progress. Begin with defining what political power means to you. Again, does your political power mean working outside the system or from within? I shared a few ideas of how to move forward in movement building, but no matter what your preferred form of activism, get involved and stay involved. There is power in numbers, but understand, trust, and believe that there is power in you. The grassroots and government channels depend on us in order to work for us. Our chosen form of advocacy, regardless of our channel, will lead to social change. History will tell the story of a woman whose grace and grit inspired generations of women and a nation. This woman gifted us with this call to action as she left the stage for the final time of her trailblazing presidential run. This loss hurts, but please never stop believing that fighting for what is right is worth it. It is. It is worth it. Hillary Rodham Clinton, America's first, but not last, woman presidential nominee. The next 4 years are uncertain, but this I know for sure. We, the people, includes us, women, immigrants, LGBTQ, Muslims, all of us. We are all part of the American story, and we have a right to her promise. The time is now for us to organize, to strategize, to connect with one another, and protect an America that has a place for everyone. It will not be easy. The journey towards progress is long, painful, and full of challenges. But for the generations to come, the promise of an America that lies ahead beckons us to work towards her possibility. So where do we go from here? The only way is forward. And today, we can create tomorrow. And it begins with us. Thank you.
Thank you. That was amazing. We have time for a question.
Okay, a question?
Who has maybe two questions.
Maybe two questions.
Because you have a little extra time. Any questions? Oh, yes.
That was pretty remarkable, I have to say.
Thank you.
I was wondering more about you, what your history is, and how you got to the Javits Center that night.
Absolutely. So if you Google my name, there is a 3-minute speech that tells my personal life story on how I fell. I'm an immigrant, adopted and raised by 2 women, and how those experiences fundamentally shaped me. When I was selected for a fun story I like to tell, that the campaign didn't know when I was selected to do the nominations was that I cut my political teeth as a college student working for a man by the name of Congressman John Lewis. So he was my introduction into the world of advocacy. When I was a college student knocking on doors for him, I never would have imagined that one day I would literally follow his footsteps, not just figuratively into government and policy, but literally onto stage. So my story is I carry lots of identities, and my travels, I've lived in California, Texas, Georgia's home, D.C. I'm now in New York. I have learned, and I said this in my speech, I've lived in the reddest of states and the bluest of states, and I truly believe that we essentially want the same things, whether we're Republican or whether we're Democrat. And that belief drives me personally in my personal work and my professional career between the nonprofit and government spaces, to understand that fundamentally what connects us runs far deeper than what divides us, and understanding that we essentially want the same things. We want to live in happy, healthy neighborhoods. We want the best for our children. We want to have a secure and optimistic future. So while I am myself going through a personal transition, thinking that I was going to be in D.C., I also understand that I have a role to play in New York in terms of community organizing, in terms of shaping public policy that impacts people's lives. And so I know for me, I've always been in the space of advocacy in different roles, again, coming from nonprofit and government. But I want to stress that you don't need to be a nonprofit or government to make an impact. You can make an impact every day. It's the intention of you making that decision that you want to be part of the change. And every decision that you make, when you come to that, once you declare that as a mission that you want to be a part of something that's transformational, be part of something that is impacting for generations to come. You don't need to be just a nonprofit. You don't just need to be in government. Oftentimes we operate in our own silos, but we're all connected, and these issues bleed across the genres, right? This is not, whatever our issues are, there's always a space for your gifts to contribute to finding a solution. Thank you.